Hello everybody, welcome to my 3v3 season review for March 2023. I had a season record of 6-3, so twice as many wins as losses. It's great to follow up a losing record from 5v5 last season. Hopefully that doesn't repeat. I hope I get a winning season this 5v5. My average score is 1994 and my opponents were 1704. The 1704, they got really skewed down by one guy, one opponent that didn't clear even his own. They just gave up after a couple battles because I had a pretty good score. But yeah, I'm just going to look at individual squads, what they did well, what they failed on, and what I might be changing for next season. So the first squad I'm looking at is one I pretty much always sit on defense perennially. It's a General Skywalker, and even though people know it's coming, they're going to have a hard time when they have to do something really good. The best lineup, I think, overall is Rex and 5s. And even though this would be good on offense, they don't have protection recovery, so they don't get great banners, and I like to put it on defense. It's a great Galactic Legend draw. I drew 7 Galactic Legends. There were 9 engagements. 7 of them were Galactic Legends, and even though there were no holds, I consider that a successful team. I'm putting this in the front wall. It just means they have 1 less Galactic Legend to use for the back wall, whatever I put there. And what I had with them most of the time was this high defense Data Cron. Had some protection too, which was helpful, but the defense really was very high. And the 2 battles that weren't Galactic Legends, I'm pretty sure it was Star Killer. So that's another good team as well. It's kind of a Galactic Legend killer on its own, so that's another great draw. I consider this successful. The most common kind of surprised me that it was JML, and it wasn't always this lineup, but it was varieties of it. I always think of Sith Eternal Emperor as the best for it because you can just true solo. Sometimes I use Lord Vader for true solo, but yeah, still pretty successful and a nice backbone to the front wall. Next up, we got the Maul team. I think it did a little bit better last season, and honestly, I kind of messed up. Because I showed Bo-Katan here, but I only had that for the last couple rounds, or a couple matches. For a while I was using armor, which I think was a mistake, because Bo-Katan has her AoE days, and I don't know, armor is better used on offense as a flex character. But even though I had the Cander's Data Cron, the performance kind of went down from last season. I drew 2 Galactic Legends, which is, I mean, it's good. It's good to draw 2. I thought it might be more, and I thought I might have gotten some holds with this, but actually, looking back, I didn't get any holds. It always took at least a couple banners, though, averaged 54.56 banners, and the most common counter was Traya, which is a great team, so if people just didn't want to mess with it, they just went ahead and used Traya, which is a pretty safe counter, but that's probably where they're getting a lot of the drop banners from. Yeah, not super great performance. Nothing like last 3v3, where they were much better. But I think people just didn't underestimate it on the front wall, which is why I didn't get a ton of holds from it. Now we get on to what I think was the best defensive team I had all season, and therefore gets the MVP ribbon. I might try to keep giving out this ribbon in future seasons, but with the Hondo Data Cron and then Bam Lead and Nest, it just worked. You know, I was tempted to use Dash in here somewhere, especially because I want to get use out of him sometimes when and put Han Chewie somewhere else. But the statistics just said put him under Bam and use Nest, and it was a great draw. Like, the only time they cleared first try pretty much was when they used Galactic Legends, and I drew 4 Galactic Legends. Otherwise it was a 2-shot, so you see a ton of 37s, 38, 37. So there's like, well, and actually there was 4 Galactic Legend battles, but one of them was a cleanup. One time they just lost and had to use a Galactic Legend to clean it up. So there's 6 holds in total. There's one match where there's several holds. So a ton of engagements, 14 engagements. This team really held the line, and there was no repeat victory. Everything was just complete diversity. People didn't know what to do. It was really just the backbone of my defense, just the best team I had. And I'm going to miss having this Data Cron next season because it is going to expire for next 3v3. But really just amazing performance from Hondo. And Darth Vader and Savage. This is kind of an audible I called after the first round of 3v3, so I only got 6 matches I placed it in, because the team I was using before, I think it was Savage with Malik, and I wanted to use Malik for offense eventually, and I just wanted to make use of Darth Vader, and there wasn't a lot of data on this team, especially when we put in Sith Empire Trooper there, which protects Vader, and Vader gets the turn meter, gets the 60% turn meter. So people, they weren't totally sure what to do with it. I mean, Trey was the most common, but it was only used twice. Drew a Galactic Legend. I got several holds because people just weren't sure what to do with it. One time it was 2 holds and then they just didn't clear it, so that's why there's only 5 banner registers here. 32 is after the drop, then the rest of them. A 58, I think that was a Galactic Legend. I think it was a solo. Might have been Lord Vader. Not sure, but that was a Galactic Legend solo. And they did have there was a Bad Batch win in here somewhere, but there was also a Bad Batch loss, I believe. So it wasn't super easy. It was just tricky to deal with. These stats, you know, they're kind of nice offensive stats, but they're kind of spread out. But yeah, I thought this was pretty successful and a good way to not waste Darth Vader in 3v3. And next we got Dash, Han, and Chewie. I didn't set them all the time. I took them on offense a few times, but I set them in, I think, about 6 battles. They didn't get any holds, which was kind of disappointing to me. And that's kind of due to the AI doesn't utilize this level 6 right. After Han shoots first, he could do Deadeyes, his extra shot ability, and then he gets basically 3 turns back to back, but instead he helps do the shrug under the AI. But they could just do so much more damage when you control for them. But in some matches, I left them on defense because I just knew I wouldn't need them specifically on offense, and I didn't want to waste them or have them overkill, so I set them on defense, and it was kind of tricky. It wasn't an obvious counter. People used the Grand Inquisitor with his Datacron a few times because it can't be stunned. Other times it was just something like a mirror, but there weren't any Galactic Legends drawn, sadly, and no holds, but still pretty good average banners lost, 53.16. That's not a failure by any stretch. It is at least stealing banners and taking a pretty decent team. While it might not be a Galactic Legend, but it is probably better on offense, and I'm not sure what I'll be doing with these guys next season since set 6 is going to expire. Jabba was just probably the most disappointing in the whole season. You know, I mean, he's not... I put that he's a 0 in the thumbnail, but he's not a total 0. It's just, it was so easy for all my opponents to counter him because so many of them have Afra, and every time you see it, it's just automatic win. I don't know. I mean, should I have taken it on offense when I see someone with Afra? I don't know if he's as good in 3v3 on offense. In 5v5, though, definitely taking him on offense. But no holds. 3 Galactic Legends. When it was a Galactic Legend, it was JMK, so... At least it's drawn at JMK, but it's still pretty good banners against that, and the average banner is 56.13 for what's supposed to be like the best defensive Galactic Legend in the game in a lot of ways. It's like if there's one solid counter, it doesn't matter how many other stuff it stops. Like in reality, this just completely was a failure for me, and it's like, I don't know, what did I even get out of having Jabba this season? Switching gears from a disappointing performance, I moved to what was a very encouraging performance and kind of a surprise. I thought at this point Qui-Gon, Anakin, and Cam were just pretty figured out. People didn't really have trouble with them, but I got a couple holds, drew a couple Galactic Legends, and got a pretty good average banner score from people. 48.33, not bad at all. And it was complete diversity. It wasn't just people spamming Newt, Jango B1. I think there was that like one time, and people weren't using Grand Inquisitor, which is probably the easiest counter. But yeah, people just didn't quite know what to do with it, and I had it on the top wall, so that might be why people use the Galactic Legends. They just had them left and were like, yeah, I want to use them on something and just want to make it safe. There's probably these 258s here, I think, now that I think of it. But still, I was pleasantly surprised by Qui-Gon's performance this season. Sortie, what is usually a pretty solid defensive team, turned into a Datacron superstar once I got her to R7 and had this Datacron. And I really think this was probably the best lineup. IG-11 makes it super annoying. And once you get through him, he's just coming back. And then it's really hard to kill Sortie in time to prevent that spare parts from coming back. And I don't have L3, so that's kind of the only light side taunting droid I have. And then T3 makes him do a lot more damage. I had some good tenacity, armor, and potency on this one. No Galactic Legends drawn, but plenty of holds. 5 holds, 12 engagements total. See the scores here, and one of them, it was, I think, like 3 holds, and they just didn't clear it. So I didn't get a low banner register for that, but if you want to average in a 0 for that, the average banners would be lower. But 51.28, still very good. And the most common counter, it wasn't like a solo Luke, it was Luke plus just 2 others, sometimes under Revan lead, or sometimes just him on his own lead. And it makes sense, it's a great counter. He dispels on the basics, so he's always going to dispel Sortie, and he can stun them, keep them under control. And I mean, in the last round, I lost the whole match because of a Sortie team, but when I did win, it was because I used Jedi Knight Luke. So overall, I'm very satisfied with Sortie, and really glad I took her up to make use of the Datacron. Raddus, he is just a defensive, like, stalwart of mine. He got a couple holds this season, no Galactic Legend strong, but I wouldn't expect that to happen anyway. He just can kind of catch people off guard, and some counters where they're pretty reliable, they don't work all the time. Someone dropped a battle with Bosk, Grief, and Mando, which is usually pretty safe, but Raddus is very fast. This ability on the Datacron wasn't really doing anything, and I changed around what I was using. But the one I had at the end of the season was a lot of armor and resistance penetration, but Raddus has a base resistance penetration of like 10, when a lot is like 300, so he really just that was not benefiting them at all. Still great banner average for defense, 48.63. The 2 holds, of course, and pulling a Jedi Knight Revan isn't bad. It's a couple legendaries, just with a bunch of marquees. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely a threat I want to leave, even though he's not like breaking anyone's spirit or being a world beater. Still very good. And General Grievous. A little disappointing to me that he got soloed by Wampa 4 times. I thought the tank revive, along with this much health and some extra crit damage, would help stop Wampa counters. Because, I mean, I lost myself against General Grievous because he had the tank revive and he was getting just a few extra shots. And that protection off for dots, Datacron is gone, so I thought he'd do a little bit better, but still got Wamped 4 times. Did draw Galactic Legend and did get a hold, but even with the hold, the average banners were 54.62, so not the best. But what else was I going to do with him? I'm not sure. I wasn't probably going to get much use out of him on offense, and, at least it wasn't just 9 Wampas. But either way, still kind of a disappointing output. And Malgus. It's worth noting in the first three battles, I had Darth Revan and Bastille set here, but for the last 6, I used this lineup, so it was a little different. I did stick with the tank revive and gave a lot of defense in the Datacron, and it got no holds, but it was drawing a Galactic Legend almost every time. 5 Galactic Legends, 2 JMKs, 2 Supreme Leader Kylos, I think a Lord Vader. But the one non-Galactic Legend was a General Skywalker, and it was a lower banner win. But still, he's useful just to... He almost requires a Galactic Legend. So he's basically a defensive Galactic Legend. I don't know if he's going to be needed on offense if this is a counter to the Third Sister Inquisitor team, which is insane right now. But I was still happy with him on defense. And when there was one round I brought him on offense, if you saw that, and it was so awkward. I wouldn't want to do it again. And last but certainly not least, we have CLS with the brand new Chewpio Cron. I didn't have it for the first round, so the first 3 battles I took this team on offense because it's definitely just Iden Versio fodder without this Datacron. People weren't using Iden Versio while I did set it, so that was good. The Datacron, in addition to the Chewpio effect, had Retribution and then health and protection recovery. Good tenacity, pretty decent armor penetration, and a lot of resistance, which resistance didn't help too much. There's not that much special damage out there. Most common counter was Dash, Han, and Chewie, and it did draw 1 Galactic Legend, but still overall the banners were not that great. I am pretty disappointed with the output. I thought it might get a couple stops, but people are just ready. They see it coming. I lost to one of these on offense, but mine, I didn't get as much done, even though they're all R8 and R7. But yeah, a little bit disappointing, but still did better than last 3v3. So that's it. That's my whole 3v3 season in review. A couple surprising things, both in a good way and a bad way. What are some things that surprised you, and what teams worked well for you this 3v3, and what are your plans for next 3v3 or 5v5? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. See you later.